Hello and welcome to 10th episode of Unproduced. As I'm actually saying this, it's great that we made it to the episode number 10. Let's see how it goes if you're listening. As always, appreciate it. Thank you for your time. If you have any notes, ideas or feedback, feel free to reach out. Today's episode is called What I Want More Of. The core idea behind this episode is that meaningful life is not only defined by what we achieve. It is also defined by what we make room for. It can be more peace, more health, more presence, more curiosity, more honest conversations, more time with people that we care about, more work that feels aligned. And this episode is about stepping back and asking a simple but uncomfortable question. What do I actually want more of? Not what looks impressive, not what other people expect, not what sounds good online, but what I genuinely want more of in my life. As I said, recently I've been thinking more about a simple question. What do I want more of? Yes, I know, it sounds easy, but I don't think it is. Because a lot of time we know what we want to achieve. For example, it can be more growth, more money, more opportunities, more recognition, more progress. And there is nothing wrong with any of that. But I think there is a different version of the question. Not what do I want to achieve, but what do I want more of in my actual life? That feels like a very different question, and maybe a more honest one. I know that this question might sound quite obvious, but believe me, in the world of social media, where again, I know we discussed it many times in the previous episodes, but when you open that social media platform and you see content of other people, let's be honest, usually you see how great people are doing. Example of LinkedIn. You open the feed and you see one creator sharing about number of leads they got thanks to one post, another creator showing number of impressions that their post received, and next one maybe saying that they get a new client from type of content or sharing some kind of wins. I'm not saying there is anything wrong with that. After all, it's good to share your wins, achievements, and success. It may motivate others, and let's be honest, it helps you to bring more opportunities. But looking at it from the other perspective, it can be quite discouraging, unrealistic, or maybe even demotivating from someone who joins the platform for the first time. Now, I know it can have opposite side as well. It can be motivating, it can help people with ambitions and some inspiration. But everyone is different, everyone has different goals, backgrounds, requirements, etc. So looking at it from the perspective that I mentioned earlier, I think it can have also slightly negative effects. Why am I saying this? Because then it brings us to what I said that we want to achieve, whether it's growth, money, opportunities, recognition, progress, and I'm sure that you can think of many more. As I mentioned, this connects to the last few episodes. Comparison makes us look sideways. Chasing more makes us feel like nothing is enough. Long-term thinking reminds us to slow down. Success is personal, and podcasting has shown me that everyone is figuring things out. Attention is limited, but burnout is real. And identity cannot only come from achievement. So after all of that, maybe the next question is, what kind of life am I actually trying to build? Not just what work, not just what audience, and not just what business, but what life. Because it is very possible to build something impressive and still feel like disconnected from the life around it. You might be thinking that I'm saying this only from my personal experience. And partially, yes, I am. Because I hope it's not going to sound egoistic, but as everyone else, have something to share about as well and some experience. But at the same time, as I mentioned, I'm also speaking of my experience, knowledge, and memory from what I remember after speaking with the guests on Produced by podcast. Yes, as I said, everyone is figuring things out. I think we often have this unrealistic view or expectation that people that are ahead of us or people that made it or just successful ones that they've got it all figured out, sorted, and they know what they are doing or what they are trying to achieve. But I think that mostly the reality is quite the opposite. Believe me, people are still figuring things out, and it's not, or it is rarely the way we think it is, such as sunshine and rainbows. And we often talk about wanting more, but we don't always define what actually more means. It can mean more money, more followers, more clients, more status, more attention, more opportunities. But more could also mean more sleep, more patience, more energy, more calm, more presence, more time outside, more honest conversations, or just more meals without rushing. And for example, even more weekends that don't feel like recovery from the week. And those are very different versions of more. And I think we need to be honest about which one we are actually chasing. Because one version of more can look impressive from the outside, and the other might actually improve your life. After saying this, and most likely listening to this, I know that this might sound obvious, but let's be honest. How often do we actually pause and think about these things? Coming back to what I mentioned before, it's natural and normal that we want more followers, clients, status, and everyone wants to improve, or okay, not everyone, but most of the people, it's normal. We want to get better, we are ambitious, and we want to succeed. But don't forget about those fundamental things, without which it will be impossible, or there will be no point, like without sleep, any energy, or simply being present. That's why I think it's always worth reminding. I hope this is not the truth in your scenario, but I think you'll be quite often surprised that those people that we see or we admire online, what it actually looks like behind the scenes. Again, I'm not saying that everyone is the case, I don't know the truth, but sometimes it looks like people are doing really well, successful, amazing work, content, results, but who knows what it is actually behind the scenes. Is it true? Is it that positive? Is it that polished? One never knows. Again, those fundamentals or basics or even obvious things that we often forget are simply non-negotiable. For me, I think I want more space. More space to think, more space to create properly, more space to have better conversations, more space to look after my health, more space to enjoy things without immediately turning them into content, progress, or productivity. I also want more work that feels meaningful, not just busy, not just visible, not just something that makes me feel productive for a moment, but meaningful. The kind of work that still feels worth doing even when nobody claps immediately. I think that is one of the reasons I care about podcasts. Because good conversations still feel valuable even when they are not optimized for quick attention. This is the question that actually I think about quite frequently, and it's also something that helped me to continue with the podcast in those moments when it maybe wasn't working, I didn't see progress or any results. And honestly, With podcasting, that's very true. I think people from the outside have unrealistic expectation or view that it's something like quick way for, I don't know, success or fame or something like that. But believe me, it's very far from the truth. Of course, unless you are maybe successful already, someone with high following. But the reality for many of us is this long, slow process. And actually knowing that those conversations that I had with the people were meaningful, whether for me, such as I learned something, I met those people, I built some kind of relationship, and it helped me to improve myself or my content. Or on the other side, knowing that there are listeners to whom it might be helpful, meaningful, and maybe inspirational as well, definitely helped me to continue. So that is example from my own journey, and I'll be actually curious, what is it like for you? If you can relate to your own situation and have some kind of example, context, or scenario that you can share, feel free to let me know. Interestingly, sometimes asking what we want more of also shows us what we want less of. Less rushing, less comparison, less noise, less pressure to reply immediately, less checking, less pretending that everything matters, less saying yes out of guilt, less measuring the day only by output, less feeling like rest needs to be earned. And this actually connects to episode number 7 and number 8, because attention and energy are limited. And if we keep spending them on things that don't matter, we have less left for the things that do. So maybe defining a meaningful life is not only about adding more. Maybe it is also about removing what keeps pulling us away from it. Saying this makes me realize how important it is to remind it myself. I often also feel like I'm behind, or I see people succeed online, sharing achievements, being ambitious. And yes, on one side, it pushes me forward, it keeps me ambitious and inspires me. But at the same time, it makes me, or it might make me feel like I'm behind. So I want to rush more. I sometimes tend to compare. I think it's natural. I try to always remind it myself, but I think it's normal. So still working on it. And I'm often impatient as well. So yes, I have the tendency to reply, for example, immediately because I mentioned it before, because because I have this curiosity to know, to somehow close it, to somehow move it forward. So believe me, that it's very much relatable to me. And a great one was saying yes. It's one of the things that I really focus on more, saying more no's. I know it may sound a bit egoistic or negative, but it's one of the best things you can do. If you said yes to everyone and to everything, you have no time left, and it's just impossible. And believe me, there are even people who take advantage of that. So think about it, and I hope it's helpful. Also, I think this is the part that I keep coming back to. What is the life around the work? Because we talk a lot about building a career, building a business, building a brand, building a podcast, building an audience. But what kind of life is all of that supposed to support? More freedom, more health, more time, more creativity, more connection? Or are we building something that slowly takes those things away? This is the uncomfortable part. Because sometimes the thing that we say we are building for starts to disappear because of the way we are building. Let me repeat that. Because sometimes the thing we say we are building for starts to disappear because of the way we are building. I think that's actually a great point to think about. Again, it's great to be building something. You're ambitious, you want to improve, want to grow. It's normal. I do that as well, and I feel like that as well. But again, the question is, everyone wants freedom, obviously. Usually when you ask people what's their goal, what they want to achieve, why they want to get rich, I don't know what else, it's usually freedom. Similar to health. Let's be honest, everyone wants to be healthy. It's normal, it's natural. Everyone wants to have more time, such as to spend it on experiences with your closest ones or doing what you enjoy. But then it makes you think about if you are building something that actually is taking those things away or actually moving you towards it. Makes me think, and I hope that it makes you think too. I'll leave it there for now and take a moment to think about it. In fact, I don't think that this means losing ambition, because I still want to grow, I still want to build, I still want to improve. I still want Produced by and Unproduced to reach more people. But I think I'm becoming more interested in a quieter version of ambition. One that doesn't require constantly proving something. One that has room for health, relationships, curiosity, rest, presence, and work that actually matters. Because that's what I want more of. Not less ambition, better ambition. Ambition that still leaves me with the life I want to live. I would guess that you feel the same, because, as I said many times, it's normal and natural that you want to grow, build, improve. You want to move one step further. But at the same time, we want to somehow control it so that different version of ambition, so that there is still a room for those basics, for those fundamentals, for those things that I mentioned before that I would bet that everyone wants. Yes, there might be some exceptions, but I would bet that the majority of people feels the same. Let's slowly wrap this up. Maybe the question isn't only, what do I want to achieve? Maybe the better question is, what do I want more of? More calm, more depth, more health, more presence, more meaningful work, more honest conversations, more time with people I care about. And maybe once we know that, it becomes easier to notice what no longer fits. So I'll leave you with one question. What do you want more of in your actual life? Thank you for listening.